to see you again. Really glad to see you here. We're just doing a little thing before I start the actual episode. I am limited on certain things I can do, like music and stuff like that. So imagine when I'm singing, when I'm doing my intro, imagine there's some like didgeridoo players playing in the background while you're listening to it, like you know what they sound like. So just pretend you're listening to those during the intro. Okay, let's start the show. What's that? Howls in the woods? Movement under the water? Something you notice out the corner of your eye, but when you look, it's gone? This is Cryptid Talk. Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? It is finally Friday, which, besides being the end of the work week, also means it's Cryptid Talk time. Woo! What is up? All the fun stuff's going on today. So I hope everyone had a good week. I hope everyone has something fun planned for the weekend and stuff like that. And yeah. So let's see, anything else. Oh yeah, and guys, before we get started, I'll say it again at the end, but I'll say it now. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell a friend about the show. I'm hoping by maybe by the end of the summer. Nah, that's a little too much. Let's go by my birthday. Let's go by November 27th. That's when my birthday is. Let's get to 100 subscribers. I think we can do that. All right. So if you haven't realized already from the little hint at the beginning of the episode, we're going to be doing some Australian cryptid episodes. This is going to be one of possibly three. I have three at the moment, so we have one Australian cryptid today. We'll be having another one next episode, and then some other ones for the third one. And when I'm actually kind of looking forward to this. When I got the idea for it with some help, I was like, let's do something a little bit. Let me do something a little different, because I am obviously a much smaller podcast, like with a much smaller audience, and just like I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody compared to a lot of other people who have done shows, like Finding Bigfoot. Cliff Bergman and James Bobo Fay started their own podcast together, and of course, since they're already so well known, that their episodes of the show like skyrocketed right off the bat, because everyone like already knows who they are. It's like, oh, I know these people are. I know these guys are. Yeah. Let me listen to them. Me, I'm just some nobody guy from Eastern Pennsylvania. So I mean, like, there's really not much, behind me. So I'm thinking that I might need to start doing some maybe little slightly creative, intros instead of doing the same little intro. That's intro than I normally would. That's why I've been doing some other stuff of like some interesting intro, and then maybe going into the normal intro, or not doing the normal intro at all, and then just doing the more creative, all right, let's try this intro kind of shot thing. So obviously I'm trying to mix it up a little bit, and give just a nice little fresh take to it, and hopefully it does work out. And I'm hoping people are what's the word I'm looking for? Not respecting it, but not just receiving it well. But maybe it could be receiving it well. But yeah, so I hope people at least are like, oh, that's like a nice little change. Sometimes some people have like the same little intro or song throughout their entire time, and then then it's like, all right, that's it. That's what it is, and they just live with that. But I want to try to shake it up a little bit, and hopefully people will receive it well. Receive, I think that's the word I was looking for. So I want to try something a little different, and then do some different ideas of doing something like this, where I was gonna do another cryptid and maybe two cryptids together, but then I was like, no, that's not right. So let me try. Hopefully, you guys didn't hear those little notification things popping up. and hopefully we can do something like different. So this won't be like a three-parter of the Australian cryptids, and then obviously these won't be all the time. They won't be like it's like after this, okay, well here's a three-parter now, and then the next one's a two-parter, yada yada yada. No, these will kind of be thrown in there so often. It's kind of like how I do have a guest plan for the show. It's just a matter of just getting in touch with them, seeing when they're free, and then recording it. So I do have a guest that he wanted to be my very first guest of my show when it started. So obviously I won't say who. You're gonna have to wait. But I think there's also some other people who, if because if I've asked, I think they might be interested. I'm friends with a I would say a nice handful of people in the cryptozoology world who I feel like would be, if they're free, would be very more than likely to be guests on my show, and so that'd be kind of cool. So obviously, guests won't happen all the time. There won't be a crazy intro all the time, stuff like that. So trying to change it up a little bit. Some people, have like a like a system or a rhythm of them kind of doing the same are we they that person knows what works and they do it, great, there's nothing wrong with that. For me, it's like I think I kind of have an idea what works, but let's change up a little bit. Let's have some fun with it. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to have some fun, to educate people about these things that they may not have heard about, or a different perspective on them, or just want to hear some awesome cool guy talk about cryptozoology. But that'll be kind of cool. That's the whole point, to have fun. This is my passion project, and obviously as I get better equipment and programs and stuff like that, when I can really edit this thing a bit better and add more stuff to it, because asked some people who are up in the cryptozoology world, like who are like, oh, can you listen to my podcast and tell me what you think? Some of them have said like, all right, maybe you add like a little catchy beat to the beginning, or like something a little upbeat. It's like, I would love to, but unfortunately, which is what I got right now, I really can't. And so obviously at some point I'm probably got to have to pay for a program or a website or something like that, to where I can get like these different like music and beats and sound effects and stuff like that. So in time, I'm really hoping to make this show even better and better as time goes on. But not today. Today we start part one of, I believe at least 3 of the Australian Cryptid Chronicles. Ooh, I kind of like that. Hold on a second. I gotta write that one down. Australian, if I can spell that correctly, Australian Cryptid Chronicles. Yes, I can spell Chronicles correctly. Huzzah! Actually sounds kind of cool. Anywho, so starting off with it, we a very well-known cryptid down in Australia. Obviously, I would probably not the biggest one. We'll probably do the biggest one next week, but I could be wrong. But we're gonna go with at least possibly one of my favorite ones, Megalania. Now, Megalania, it was was a living, actually, well, it used to be a living creature. There are fossil records of it. There's fossils, and there's evidence to know that this creature did exist many years ago. But there are stories today of people still seeing it, even up until the recent times of, let's not jump too far ahead, but yeah, people are saying that even today they are still seeing this creature alive today, which into science and everything like that, it should be impossible. But let's get into it, shall we? So Megalania, which was a known animal, was the biggest known lizard in the world. Nothing came close to it. In some cases, they say it's like the size of a bus, a small car, just way bigger than anything that we could possibly have to deal with today. It lived during the Pleistocene era, had to think of that. Pleistocene era. There we go. And stories say that it was between around 11 to 23 feet long. That's pretty big. And even I think I saw something saying it might be up to even 30 feet. So we'll say 11 to 30 feet long. Whether or not this is true or not is terrifying nonetheless. But say that the creature might have weighed like 4,200 pounds. So this thing weighs at least over 2 tons. That's ridiculous. I could not possibly imagine back in the time when this thing was at its prime, seeing a lizard that was about 30 feet long, weighing 4,200 pounds, and could make anything a snack. It's just mind-boggling to me. But that kind of goes. Yeah, let's not get into it. Let's not get into it just yet, because what I'm about to say might be something I'll bring in. I've mentioned it before I believe in the first episode, but I'm gonna save it for now. So I'll save it to a little bit later on. My point of where I thought about this. So the interesting thing is that the Pleistocene era ended around 11,700 years ago. Now that's when it ended, and that necessarily doesn't say that that Megalania survived all the way. Going by science and stuff like that, because a lot of times, a lot of eras like Jurassic, prehistoric, like all those eras where like the dinosaurs and everything like that, started at this point and ended at this point. Now, it doesn't mean that a dinosaur that was alive in the beginning of the point lasted until the very end. So that's an argument that some people say that it's like, okay, well, I don't think this thing lasted. There's no way it survived, up until how long till then and everything like that. Because, no, getting my head of myself, trying to stay on track. So the interesting thing is that there are some fossils of Megalania that have been found as recent that are as 50 to 23,000 years old. Now, in retrospect of going by how old the Earth is and how long the dinosaurs were around and long ago that was, 50 to 23,000 years is honestly nothing in the grand scheme of the Earth and everything like that, and that's pretty recent. And Aboriginal people were by the end of the time where supposedly these fossils, during the Pleistocene era, Aboriginal people were arriving on to Australia. So there is a pretty good chance that Megalania had run-ins with earlier Aboriginal people, which could have possibly been the thing that caused it to go extinct. Should I? No, I keep trying to go into that. And so, but I can also imagine that the Megalania, if this was the case, didn't go down quietly. Again, how big and ferocious a creature it probably was, it probably got plenty of these people than these things got until if they were the case, were able to wipe it out. So I believe that Aboriginal people and Megalania did coexist at one point. Whether or not they were the cause of it going extinct or something else or a combination of things, who knows? But I believe, and other people believe, that Megalania still exists. It still exists. They're still alive today, and it's just one of those things that, yeah, sure, like Mothman, the little green goblins of Kentucky, and other cryptids like the Fresno Nightcrawlers. Those cryptids are all well and good, but there's something to me about like prehistoric animals that are still alive today, or giant versions of animals. Now, this may not be more so of a giant version of animal, but more of a, hey, let's get a prehistoric animal and still be alive today. I find that a lot more fascinating, and I love it. Okay. So today in Australia, a known animal that does live in there, which is possibly a more modern relative of Megalania, is the monitor lizards, and they are a much smaller species, maybe only around like 3 to 4 feet long, but these guys are skinny little guys. They're very fast and very agile, and sure, like anything, they've got claws and teeth. So if you try messing with them, sure, yeah, they might get mess you up a little bit, but nothing to where like I think it bit me. Well, I'm dead. Oh, there's one over there. Oh, I think I'm about to be his snack. No, these things are nowhere near super dangerous to humans at all. So obviously, some people are suspecting. I'm getting ahead of myself. Getting ahead of myself, but the largest known lizard that actually lives on Earth today, confirmably, is the Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon lives on the island Komodo and a few other nearby islands over there, over in Indonesia. And let's see, I think I got some stuff right here. So some of the bigger Komodo dragons can be up to 10 feet long, and some of them weighing up to weighing 330 pounds. That's pretty big. Like, if you've ever seen Komodo dragons are fast and strong, and excuse me, are probably one of the most dangerous lizards in the world. Because unfortunately, people do live alongside these things, and unfortunately, there are stories of them, killing people. And it's gonna happen. You live along with wildlife, especially dangerous, meat eaters like that. It's gonna happen. Because Komodo dragons, besides just being big and strong and fast, the thing that makes them so dangerous is the saliva in the bacteria, the saliva in their mouth, with all the different stuff they eat. Because they will eat anything, no matter how old the meat is or the carcass or whatever, they will eat it. And after time of eating all these just very not well sanitized carcasses and animals and stuff like that, a lot of the bacteria starts to form in their saliva and their gums and their teeth. And in some cases they necessarily don't even have to take you down. In the cases of like water buffaloes and other cows and everything like that, and deer that live in the air and where they are, all they really need to do is just bite you. You run away, and they'll find you later. Because Komodo dragons, like many lizards and snakes and reptiles, have a forked tongue they use to taste the air and to follow their prey. So the prey could be a long distance away, but they will catch up by tasting the air and finding it. So Komodo dragon bites you, and then you're pretty much done at that point, because the bacteria in it is just so potent. It's not even the fact that it's venom, like a poisonous snake, where it's designed like that. It just has this very potent saliva, and it just bites you, and then it just gets into you, and then you slowly die. And then once you're dead, it finds you like, ooh, there's my snack. Crawl, 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 munch, munch, munch. And then there you go, and there goes his prey. So now, obviously, we can't really know for sure, because Megalania, was just how far back it was. Sorry about that. But we will never really know how it really true hunted. We get ideas about it, through modern relatives like the Komodo dragon and monitor lizards, and other species of giant lizards like that. But we'll obviously never know for sure. But it's pretty interesting about that. And the other, I can't even imagine being an early Aboriginal people coming to Australia, and then next thing you know, there's this huge giant lizard that could take a person in an instant without any trouble whatsoever. And they're trying to take this thing down. It might take a few of them with him, and I can't imagine seeing a lizard that big today. That would be insane. And hopefully well, stories of Megalania to this day are not dangerous at all. There's, okay, we'll get to that soon. So this is something that I personally do love when it comes to any sort of cryptid adds adds like credibility to the story, or adds, yeah, to the story, to the accounts, to the legend, whatever you do want to call it, of it being like, crooks. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's been a long day for me. For you, and it's good. It's near the end of your day, so it could be a long day for you. Anyhow, so the apparition, there are paintings, cave paintings of Megalania on that ancient that, yeah, I guess ancient original Aboriginal people painted, showing the people and showing a giant lizard of much bigger size. Now, who's to say for sure that these people on, who came there, who knows how long they were on, they were in Australia until they started painting these. Because, like I was talking about a few episodes ago with Mokele and Bembe, where if natives have lived in that area for a very, very long time, and they know all the animals that live there, and they can tell the difference between Mokele and Bembe or a crocodile, so now who knows now if they really truly did come, where they're still getting used to Australia, they may be a little bit more like, may not be fully aware of everything that lives there, so it could be possible that maybe they misidentified it as something else. But some of these Aboriginal paintings that I've read about, they show it much bigger. They show it like, excuse me, just as big or bigger than the average people. And obviously, they probably would have seen a monitor lizard at some point, and knowing that monitor lizards are nowhere near that big or even a threat to people, and yet they are showing they're painting this creature that is just bigger than them, and it's something to be feared. And so I it's also like with Bigfoot, how there are some cave paintings of a big hairy Bigfoot like creature along the size of normal people, and just showing the immense size, how much bigger it is compared to the people and everything like that. And that just adds to me personally, I feel it adds so much more credibility behind it, because it's not just a story that's being passed by. We have technically sometimes even the better evidence than, like, if you were to be like, oh, I saw I saw I saw a walking trash can or something like that, but there's no like evidence of that. But if you go look back there, if you look back in ancient times of that area, you see like paintings of a walking trash can. You're like, wait, what there's so I think those sometimes add more credibility than I think than some, not all, but some modern day accounts of people telling stories of seeing these things. And I always love hearing about that. And hopefully, I think there's some other stuff that we'll talk about later on in like other future episodes of some other interesting cryptids that may not be as far-fetched as some people might think. But we will save that for another time. So let's see. Okay, so okay. Oh yeah, and these cave paintings, before we get too far off, were actually only less than 10,000 years old, which to some people is incredible, because the Pleistocene era ended around 1700 years ago from this. But yet they may not have been guaranteed Megalania to technically have lasted that long. So the fact that this is even longer past when the Pleistocene era ended, and yet there are these cave paintings showing of a possible Megalania cave paintings, shows that maybe this thing didn't die off as late as people thought, and maybe lasted a little bit longer, or maybe even till today. Who knows? But there's a lot of cryptids like that. I'll mention it briefly because I do want to get into it. Megalodon for an example, another mega thing. And Megalodon was an was a prehistoric species of shark, but stories of it still go on to today, where even some teeth that have been found in Megalodon may not be as old as people thought, and it being a lot more recent. Ooh, future teaser for a future episode. Ooh. So, but we won't get out. That's where I'll stop for that for now. But just think about it and keep an open mind about it a little bit. Now, is there much evidence of Megalania? Not really, no. The only known evidence of Megalania are possible tracks of a big creature found, and I will post the pictures on Facebook. And yes, I know I'm not the best at posting things on social media, and I have to catch up on some things I said I would post. And so don't worry, I will be that sometime this weekend. I'm going to be posting everything that I said I would going to, and blam blam blam, and make sure I get it all out there. But so these footprints are very interesting. They are very big. They're very big. They show definite feet, like a front or whatever you want to call it. A definitely print of a creature. I think it was like 4 or 5 fingers, or appendages, or toes, whatever you want to call it. And so it's pretty interesting. Now, people from Monster Quest they had a special about Megalania, an episode about it, and they had someone look at them, and they don't believe that they belong to Megalania, but going by I believe there's only one well-known fully constructed fossil of Megalania. There's also not a lot of fossils of it either, so they're kind of going off of what they can find. But they say that it didn't match that, but who knows? It didn't evolve, or something else along those lines. Maybe it might be a little different. Who knows? But the person found the tracks one time, and then years later, in a slightly different or similar area, found the tracks again, and they seem to be very similar to one that he found before, showing that it was either the same creature or multiple. Now, the other thing I was going to get on, I'm like, oh no, wait, no, stop, is that this then comes into the story of okay, well, what if this technically isn't Megalania, but what if it's just a more mutated version of a modern lizard that just grew to giant sizes? And at some point we will get to it, because I also do like giant animals are in a way considered cryptid, like giant anacondas, spiders and lizards, crocodiles, and everything. That there are stories all over the world of bigger than normal size animals, and people are trying to figure out, are they really that big? Like, they shouldn't be that big. I believe I may have mentioned it in the first episode, I believe. But so if you look back into it, so let's do okay, let's do crocodiles for an example. Crocodiles these days, grow to like 15, 20 feet at max. Stories of them being bigger. But, that's the normal size. While back in the day, crocodiles were probably about like 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 feet long. Okay, maybe not that big, but at least 40 to 50 feet long, and would prey on T-Rex and other dinosaurs like that. And so people might think like, all right, well, like, why, we had giant animals back then. Why can't we have them now? Or why are they not as, relative today? And there's a couple things. One of the biggest ones that may be surprising, but when you really think about it, like, okay, it makes sense, is the lack of oxygen in the air. Now, unfortunately, people are not people suck, and we like humans like to destroy a lot of trees, and just give less oxygen in the overall air. Now, obviously, people have gotten better replanting trees and stuff like that. But with there being less, and then of course, with more people, more things to breathe in the air, there's less oxygen, than there normally would be. and then bigger animals need more oxygen. If you look at the lungs and the heart of or get an idea of how big they were, bigger creatures would need more oxygen to be able to survive. So the argument could then be made that there aren't as many giant animals now these days because there's not as much oxygen in the air, and why we haven't been able to see creatures like this anymore. Now, and that's one that is people wouldn't think of much. The other reason that people might be a bit more understanding is not as much food. Something like a 40-foot crocodile would need a lot of food to be able to sustain its size. And with the food getting smaller or there being less of it, over time in evolution, they had to shrink to compensate for the amount of oxygen in the air and the amount of food and space they have available to them. So that's why they have to be like that. Now, so people could maybe argue like, okay, well maybe Megalania was a species, is now like a modern, like a giant reptile of some sort, and or like of a normal reptile but just somehow bigger. Very well possible, because there are plenty of stories of people who have seen Megalania. Now, some of the stories I've seen of people have not seen it as being like the car-sized monster that stories foretell it as, but a little bit smaller, but nonetheless still bigger than anything that there should be there. You'd be surprised how many stories I've read and heard of someone going into the outback, sitting on a log, and next thing you know, the log starts moving and running away. And you can just imagine, like, it's kind of hard to think as a log as a thinking it's a log, but it's actually an animal. It kind of might be interesting. I mean, obviously, yes, logs can be multiple different sizes depending on the type of the tree and stuff like that. But it kind of just shows like, okay, the fact that there's still a lizard that in Australia that is that big is something that shouldn't be there at all. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. Ugh. And so when people look at that, they're like, okay, interesting. And of course, the people freak out. People have seen this thing like, they're just sitting there, then they see like trotting down a trail and then going back into the bush. But a lot of these stories, thankfully, have not seen as like aggressive stories, which is good, because if these things were to be aggressive and actually wanted to harm you, there probably wouldn't be much you would really be able to do unless you were packing some heat. And so that's kind of interesting. Another interesting thing that someone might be to prove about the whole thing behind Megalania and everything like that is that one argument against it is that it would have to be able to reproduce. You need a large population to make for there to be sightings, there would be more of it. Now, obviously, that could be the same for a lot of different cryptids, Bigfoot and everything like that. Like, we can't keep having these stories. There has to be a population, so a large, healthy population, meaning we should be seeing these things a lot more, not as scarce as people, see them as. And so, because I have an article that I have up here that I found that talks about a lot of really interesting things and some stories that I will read to you shortly. But so one person, because in recent discovery, the Megalania's cousin, aka the Komodo dragon, may provide a possible solution to the large breeding population problem. And what I'm about to read, and again, what I'm reading now is a quote from this article. So, quote: in 2006, it was discovered that Komodo dragons could reproduce through a process called, bear with me for just a moment, parthenogenesis. Okay, that's pretty easy. Through this process, unfertilized eggs laid by a female can incubate and hatch with no interaction with the male Komodo dragon. It is theorized that this helps the species survive in isolated areas. This process will only work for one generation, as only male hatchlings are produced in this manner. It does, however, show the size of a viable breeding population of Megalania may be much smaller than previously believed. Mm. Okay, so okay, so with this process, what they're pretty much meaning that one possible thing for these things is that these things are able to, do this process and may not generally need a male to make it happen. It's like, okay, and so that now does that necessarily answer everything about it? No, but at least like the defense of there being like oh well, it's impossible kind of thing. Now I'm gonna throw in something in there real quick, and maybe this could be said for other cryptids, especially like maybe cryptids that have been around here for a long time and are going to survive to this day, or ancient animals that we know existed but have been able to evolve and adapt to this day, possibly like Nessie. If she truly is a plesiosaur, why we don't see it as much? Because it evolved to where it may not need oxygen as much, so we're not seeing it pop its head out as often as we know people suggest that we should. But again, this is a complete hypothesis, or not even a hypothesis, just a thought. But I've got no evidence behind it or anything like that. Just here's a thought. What do you think, kind of thing. And who's to say that reptiles are very interesting. Reptiles are resilient. They can live in very crazy environments, like albino alligators, and they have been known to actually survive a little bit better and grow better in the darkness. And there have been places of them fitting reptiles all over the place. So reptiles are resilient. So again, my theory is that, again, with no real evidence, just a thought. How do we know that they just didn't evolve to age slower? I know I've got nothing to go off of that, nothing at all. But how do we know? How do we know that these things maybe, because reptiles, maybe had to evolve, or they had to survive in certain times, and maybe in the case like this where they don't have ways of easily reproducing, maybe they just age slower. So let me just throw it out there. So let's go with this parthenogenesis theory, and then let's say that they also age slow. There are some animals, like species of large fish and other reptiles and everything, that they actually don't reproduce until much later in their life. And for them to, I think it's sturgeon. I think it's the fish, are possibly like this, but take a very long time to get to reproductive age. And if a creature like a fish gets fished before it has a chance to breed, well, there's one less thing that could help populate the species. And now let's say in cases like this where there are so few of these things that they somehow have evolved or able to age slower, where maybe they had to live like 30, 40, 50, maybe longer years before they can even reproduce. And then they do what they need to do, and then boom, we got some more, kind of thing. Again, I've got no evidence to support this at all. Sorry, I'm so sorry about that. Um, and maybe that leads to it possibly being like that. I know there's not much to go off of, but until more cryptids are found, and then we're able to prove one way or the other, anyone's guess about any of these things is as good as anyone's. Sure, like I'm going to backtrack a little bit to Bigfoot for just a quick moment. Some people believe that Bigfoot is an alien because people have seen them either like a Bigfoot on the ground and a possible UFO in the sky, or some people even said that they've seen like a Bigfoot-like creature coming out of a UFO or being dropped off or something like that. And so people think that Bigfoot might be an alien. I personally believe that if aliens probably abduct Bigfoot. There are stories of alien abducting humans and just figuring out what makes them tick. I wouldn't be surprised if they were curious as all hell and wondering, the heck is this thing? and they abduct it to figure out what it is, and then they're like, oh, it's a Bigfoot or whatever, and they just drop it back off. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, but who knows for sure. And so maybe there's a lot more to Megalania than that, because there are recent enough accounts of Aboriginal people talking about these things, and then and then having cave paintings and these things suggesting these things were at least alive a lot longer than they were originally thought to go extinct. So adds adds some credibility to it. All right, let me see if I can find the thing. Oop, I think I went too far. Megalania. Da, 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 da. Okay. Okay, so what I'm here, I'm gonna read some. I have an article that I found, and in this article, the person who wrote this is talking about Megalania and a bunch of other fun stuff. So quote, Arthur, author and journalist Peter Hancock is an expert on the Aboriginal legends of Megalania prisca. That would be the scientific name for it. He relates one story of Megalania that wandered into the ocean. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't say when the story happened, but obviously often enough to where someone was able to tell him a story about it, or he relates one story. Megalania is attacked by a great white shark. The Megalania kills the shark and drags it onto shore. Hancock notes that it is strange that these stories and paintings are so fresh with Aborigines tens of thousands of years after Megalania supposedly went extinct. End quote. So, showing that this creature, which should have been extinct long ago, stories of Aboriginal people talking about it, which are not that long ago. So it's kind of interesting that, all right, maybe there's something a bit more to this. Now, again, like a lot of cryptids and stuff like that, could there be possibility of misidentification? Sure. I mean, Indonesia is a pretty decent distance away from Australia, but who's to say that maybe some or one or whatever didn't swim or float from there and land on Australia at some point, and because of all the space and everything, didn't grow to a huge size. It is very possible, but again, no one will know for sure. Okay, and here's something else in here. Quote, author and cryptozoologist Rex Gilroy believes the stories are fresh in Aborigines because Megalania has not gone extinct. He relates the story of how the Australian town of Ura was terrorized by a giant lizard in 1890. The story tells of a 30-foot reptile raiding farms and killing livestock. Many eyewitnesses reportedly saw the creature before it retreated back into the bush. End quote. So, see, that's another story in 1890. Not that long ago. Not tens of thousands of years ago. Only just a little over 100 years ago, we were having a story like this. So, interesting. Also talk about how a group of Aborigines reported seeing a giant lizard coming to their camp. That's in the recent years. It was about 22 feet long. And here's another one here in the article. Quote, one Megalania sighting did yield some proof. In the winter of 1979, Gilroy received a call from a farmer in Maruya. This farmer reported seeing a 20-foot long lizard that left tracks. And that was one of the tracks I was telling you, I was mentioning. Gilroy was able to make a plaster cast of one of the tracks. In January 2008, Gilroy found additional tracks on the forest trail about 185 miles from where this one was. He made a cast of these tracks and found them to be very similar to the tracks that were made in 1979. End quote. So now we have these are the tracks that I mentioned just a little bit ago, but this is the only real known evidence of Megalania. Some tracks that have been found 185 miles different apart from each other, with that are very similar to each other in looks and characteristics and everything like that. So definitely something that I feel like shouldn't be ignored. That's for sure. Quote, most experts do not believe that Megalania sightings are real. John Long is a paleontologist with the Museum of Victoria in Melbourne, Australia. He believes that in order to, for there to be one, for a population, that's be a long population, and that'd be hard to hide. And then that's when it starts and goes back into the parthenogenesis theory. And it's I just feel like there just has to be a bit more to it than just that. When you have Aboriginal peoples, locals, telling stories about seeing a giant lizard, and then cave paintings, and even seeing sightings to today, that's something that I feel like you just can't ignore it. Now, and the creatures and sightings of those creatures still go on till today, in the more not as close to civilization, but kind of out there in the bush. Because if you've never really looked at a thing of Australia, people only main civilizations only live on the coasts of Australia, there, and even maybe even inward for a bit. But the center parts of Australia, where probably more Aboriginal people live, I would probably say are completely untouched. And who knows what's living out in those parts of Australia? Of cryptids like Megalania, the Yowie, and other stuff that we will get to. How do we know there's not more of these things out there? But if no one goes out there, we can't report these kind of stories, or people won't know. So until we discovered every inch of Australia at the same time and be like, okay, I saw nothing there. Okay, then this really isn't this. But people say that they are seeing this thing until today. Sorry, good deeply apologize. And so I think that we shouldn't be too quick to throw out the possibility of maybe there being something about Megalania, if it truly does exist, which I believe it does. But whether you believe it or not, that is up to you, my dear listeners. And so hopefully we get some more evidence, or because I don't think there's even any video of the creature. All we got are stories in these tracks. That's really it. And hopefully, and the one person who did look at, who did have this Megalanius skeleton, the footprints of it do not match these possible so-called Megalania modern day tracks. But who knows? They didn't evolve to something else or something along those lines. We don't know. But the expert says that these do not belong to a Megalania. And I'm like, oh well, that's unfortunate. But who knows? But they believe that, but just because they don't believe it doesn't mean it's not real. So fingers crossed. And I think it's such an interesting cryptid, that's for sure. And I want to go to Australia for so many different reasons. One, to explore the outback for sure, and see if I can see any of these Australian cryptids and stuff like that. Even though, obviously, of course, if I ever go there, I'd be very careful because, as they say, almost everything in Australia wants to kill you because some of the most dangerous and venomous creatures on the planet live in Australia. So, and some of them are not all big. Some of them are small. So, fun time there with that. Let's see. I think that might be it. Yeah, that's and that's all I got for now. Or I got for today for about Megalania. Yeah, it's not a super duper long episode because unfortunately, I mean, I could probably go and find and read more stories and stuff like that, but so if you want to hear more stories about maybe the cryptid I'm talking about, let me know in the comments below. And there's also not a huge lot of written reports about Megalania through my initial search and some more research I went into the fact after that. I think that like some people, there are some stories I've heard, where they were on TV or they were on a video, someone talking about, and they were reading the story, but there's no read it, like they were emailed the story. It's not like it's put out there for a lot of other people to read and stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot on Megalania, but something that definitely could be for sure. Because people also say that they're on the island of Komodo, where the Komodo dragon lives, that there are stories of there being bigger than normal Komodo dragons. But being like because also Komodo dragons are as big as they are, the stories of them being bigger. So who knows for sure? And then they say like, okay, well, who's to say that that is not a large Komodo dragon that came over to Australia, and then and then yada yada and all that. But who knows? Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. We're around 50 minutes right now, which is okay. It's around the range. I try to get between like 45 minutes to an hour, maybe more, depending on what the topic is. But I think that's all I got for now. I mean, like, if I really wanted to, I could try dragging some of this out a little bit. But, I don't want to. The one thing I don't want to do that I had to do with my radio show when I did this back in college was that I had an hour. And at some point, I kind of had to slow down a little bit and stretch some things out and kind of ramble on a little bit. And I don't want to ramble. I want to, say what I need to say. And if I forget stuff, maybe write it down, maybe do something about it with it in the future. But I don't want to, ramble on anything like that. So I hope everyone did enjoy this episode. Um, I actually, I had a lot of fun with this one, coming up and the ideas I had with it, and then what I'm doing with this multi-parter episodes that we'll be doing. I'm kind of looking forward to doing other ones like this. So if you have any suggestions or possible other cryptids or other things like that that you would be interested in me doing, let me know. Put it down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. I would greatly appreciate it. Um, so okay, now I gotta do all my little plug stuff. I will be in the Central Pennsylvania Paranormal Bigfoot Convention, August 3rd in Ellsburg, Pennsylvania. August 3rd, Ellsburg, Pennsylvania. I will be there all day. I will be having my Bigfoot costume. Hopefully have some merch, and I will hopefully love to meet people. Some people listen now, or people who might be listening after they meet me at the festival. And I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully to meet some amazing people there and everything. And if you have seen anything, if you've seen, it doesn't have to be pertained to this topic today. If you've seen a Bigfoot, a sea, like a lake monster, a sea monster, goat man, dog man, any sort of cryptid or creature that you saw, or you were terrified to tell someone, or you saw something but you don't know what it is, you need some validation of what you saw, email me please. I want to, at some point, once I get more subscribers and more people listening, hopefully I'll start getting some stories that will start pouring in, and maybe I can do an episode every so often, reading people's stories and stuff like that. I would really love to do that. I would honestly love to be on my lunch break and to start reading, look at my email and start reading people's stories, and that's what I'd really love to do. So let me be your outlet. Let me be someone that you can talk to. This is a judge free zone. I don't care how ridiculous or short or long the story is. Send them to me. I would love to be able to read them, and if anything, help if needed. So if you want to do that, you can email me at cryptidtalk91@aol.com. Email me there. Email me your story. You can put your name, your real name. You can put an alias. You can put anonymous. You can put whatever there. Just send me your stories, and I would love to hear them. And also, if you haven't already, follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/cryptidtalk. That's where I'm going to try to catch up on some of these things I said I'm going to post. And if you aren't on the page already, you'll be missing out on some of this juicy information I'll be posting there. And hopefully to see you over there. And also, of course, you're there, follow the page too. And that's also where I post updates on the YouTube channel and everything like that. And also for the YouTube, if you're a previous listener or a new listener, hit the little bell icon as well. Sometimes you don't always get notifications about a YouTube channel you're following when they upload something. So hit that little bell, and so you get notifications. So when I post a video, you will see it coming. So I hope everyone has a everyone had a fantastic day and has an amazing weekend. And obviously, of course, I want everyone to stay safe, and just live life, have fun, laugh, and be nice to someone. To tell a stranger like that they look nice, they have a nice hat, or they're looking good today, because that smile could mean all the difference to them. Anywho, keep your ears and eyes open for the creepiness in store, because you never know what you'll find outside of your door. This has been Cryptid Talk with Michael Madden. Have a good day, everyone, and stay squatchy.